A huge thank you to the local organizers. First of all, for putting a great conference together. Secondly, allowing us to hijack the final day of the program. It's a great honor for us to be here and present the DIRTT project in front of every one of you. So thanks a lot. Thanks to IMBA Europe for all the support to making this happen. Again, my name is Lars. I work in education currently, technically, on paper. However, through the past 10, 12 years, I've actually been working in the mountain biking sector. So maybe there's a slightly old school vibe to this picture. This is 10 years back, and this is back from my early years in my home region of Hallingdal. So the region decided that they wanted to become a leading mountain bike destination in Norway. And what do you need to become a leading mountain bike destination? I think there is a common theme throughout this conference. Yeah, you need awesome trails, right? However, unfortunately, at the moment, there weren't any trail builders. There were no professional trail building companies. So basically, my responsibility in this project was to get a group of enthusiasts, riders, volunteers together, none of them with any formal training, put them on projects, learning by doing, knowledge exchange. And of course, you probably recognize some faces on this picture. We were lucky enough to get some international experts on board to speed up the learning process. But even so, like, the process was very much learning by doing and learning by failing. So the reason why I brought up this picture is that I actually see that I think what we went through 10 years ago in many ways reflect what is going on in a lot of places in the European trail building sector. So as mentioned, we really struggled to recruit qualified workforce. And we see now through the DIRTT project, through the research, we have been able to undertake that that's actually the case in most places. 57% of the sector struggle to find qualified workforce, and as a direct consequence, 60% of all companies, they need to do their training in-house. So maybe this wouldn't have been a problem if these companies had had huge capacity. However, in the same surveys, we've also been able to map the size of companies. So the typical size of trail building companies in Europe is 1 to 3 employees. Adding to that, only 21% of the companies actually work in a year-round basis. So imagine all of this effort to train staff with this structure in place. It's really, I would say, an unfair and quite large stress we put on the organization. So that's a problem for the trail building companies, yes. But in my eyes, and I think in the eyes of the DIRTT project, it's also a problem for local communities, for destinations, because this stuff happens. And I think you've all seen it. This is a picture from my home region. Maybe you can see the contours of a trail that once was a nice flow trail. However, a storm went through, washed out the trail. Some places in Europe, it's the heavy rainpour. Some places, it's the extreme drought. Some places, it's the storms knocking down trees. But we do see across Europe that nature is under pressure. We also see, and this is actually quite positive, that nature users, they're more than ever. Like, we had a boom during COVID, right? Everybody wants to be outdoors, which is good. But adding to the pressure of climate change, we have an additional pressure from more people wanting to get outdoors. And we've also received feedback from a lot of places throughout Europe that very often we see that on the management side, so people managing nature areas, there's actually quite a limited knowledge of the tools and specialized competence that could potentially help counter these negative effects. So what I'm getting to here is, like, these structures and these this sort of the basic developments we see all around. is the starting point of the DIRTT project. So here it is, lovely bunch of people, probably some familiar faces in there. See if you can spot any. There's at least one president in the picture. Or should I say, ex-president? The ex-president. So this was the starting point of the DIRTT project. Our main objective is to create a system of formal training, education, and certification in the European trail building sector. So these projects, they don't just happen by chance. In this case, the project happened due to this lovely event, the IMBA European Summit. This was back in 2017. A group of partners sat down. There might have been beer involved, can't remember. But that was the first early beginning of the DIRTT project. More partners came along, and today we have a pretty wide consortium of 10 partners, 6 different countries. We have partners from vocational training, from universities, from sports associations, trail building companies. So it's sort of a wide profile in the DIRTT project. Of course, we would love to work on this in our spare time. However, for these kinds of projects, it does help to have funding. Our funding has come from the European Union, Erasmus Plus program. We've been fortunate to this point to receive almost 800,000 euros for 2 phases of the DIRTT project. So huge thanks to the European Union, to the Erasmus program, and to the Norwegian HKDIA department for helping us out. So we're going to wind back slightly to the first phase of the DIRTT project. Again, as I said, we had located our need to develop more training for the sector. And in our application process, we started mapping what is needed to be able to provide that education. So first of all, we had a lot of presumptions about what the industry looked like. However, we wanted to make sure that we actually hit the mark. So instead of having presumptions, we needed to have hard facts. So actually, the first phase of the project was a pretty comprehensive survey in the trail building sector. We interviewed 140 trail building companies and just around 4,000 riders. So through this report, and I hope you might want to swing by the DIRTT webpage and have a look. There's a lot of interesting insights in there. And through that insight, we were actually able to create the first European trail building education syllabus. So this syllabus was based at the managerial level. There were several reasons for that. One of them being that my school mainly educate at this level. So it's sort of low-hanging fruit, and it gave us a good opportunity to actually put the education out there at the end of the project. In order to deliver education, you need educational resources. There is a lot of good books out there. We did a mapping of what was available, and we identified that a lot of that needed adaptation to the European context. And definitely we needed better accessibility. So getting everything in one place in a homogeneous style and language. We created a European-wide knowledge hub, which is live. It's available. You can log on to our webpage and get credentials, and it's all free to use. Okay? So everything we do in the DIRTT project is open source. Finally, after having established the necessary insights, created the syllabus, the training resources, we were able to collect, I think, 19, 20 tutors across Europe to train them to use the syllabus. And at the end of the project, we actually launched the first European trail building manager study, or trail building study, which was quite a large success. This was a 30 ECTS study, so that equates to sort of half of an academic year, but we did it as part-time, so it was a full year study. We had a full signing of 30 participants when it launched, and at the end we had 20 candidates passing from 12 different nationalities. So really this was also a proof of concept, right? We saw that there is actually a great demand, not just in Norway, like the course was based out of Norway, but from all across Europe. So In addition to that, there were some nice trickle-down effects. So of the tutor base that we were able to educate, they took that knowledge back home and they now use that in volunteer courses. So we have a volunteer course program in Scotland. We have a volunteer course running under the Trail Foundation in Switzerland. I think we have an ongoing effort in Denmark maybe to get something similar up and running. So, so we had some really, really good effects of that project. But working on the educational side, we also came to a realization that we don't necessarily cater to everyone. Like, what about my old group of guys here? Like, they're the core of the professional industry now. Do we want to force them back to school to do education? Maybe these guys already have what's needed to perform in a professional role, but what they risk is that they lose projects because they're not able to prove that they're actually competent. Through our service, we were able to get support that the majority of European trail builders actually would like to see a European-wide certification scheme. And so for us, that became the natural step forward with the DIRTT project when we came to an end in 2022. Again, we went into this project design process and we knew what we had done in DIRTT 1.0 and we started thinking sort of outputs. So we're not doing a pilot study, we're not doing education, we need certification. We definitely need to cater for the level 5 guys that we're already we're good at that. We have all the sort of basis information from the first project phase, but we also want to make sure that we have something for the practitioners, guys with the shovel and girls with the shovels. So we want to extend the reach of that within a European certification scheme. In order to operate a certification scheme, we don't need tutors, we don't need to educate, we don't need educational resources. What we do need is assessors who can actually go out and check whether people have the right competence. And we need a system to keep all of our efforts organized. We don't need a syllabus, but we need a competence framework describing what do we expect from a professional trail builder in various job roles. And we need to be able to be sure that we pinpoint those competencies directly at what's actually required by the sector. And finally, more insights. We always need more insight. We need to be more specific when changing the focus of the project. And we need to be better at integrating insights around sustainability and inclusion research. Voila. DIRTT 2.0. So again, these processes are always exciting. You don't quite know what to expect. Will we get funding? And it's clear that the EU, they really believe in what we're doing. We got a full budget, everything that we applied for, and we were able to kickstart the project in 2022. Luckily, this time without COVID, which made everything way easier. So I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up and just present to you our main outputs here. So you already saw some findings from our trail sector survey. We had just about 160 respondents, trail organizations and companies replying to this one. Slight repetition here, 45% have 1 to 3 employees. Only 30% of the business has more than 15, okay? Recruitment is difficult, we know that. And what's interesting here also, like we want to cater to the job profiles in the sector, but it's really clear, like there are not really any common standards. So we asked trail builders, like, so what is your role? And even after sort of doing some sorting of the titles we got back, we ended up with 54 different job titles. And we see that 90% of the sector, they're not specialized at all. They work in all kinds of roles, which is not surprising when you look at the size of the typical trail building organization, of course. So during a typical workday, trail builders, they will juggle multiple roles. So in a sense, you can say that it makes our work hard because we need to cater to something that's really sort of hard to get a hold on. But on the other hand, I think it also justifies why this is important, that we try to bring some sort of structure to the sector. Throughout the survey, we've always also been able to map out the role-specific competencies and apply that to our competence framework, which I'm going to come back to. Just going to mention this nice little report that we just released, the report on sustainability and inclusion. So DGI and the municipality of Agder, huge thanks for you guys to putting in massive efforts to finish this report. So again here, as I said, we needed deeper insights. We needed to make sure that we had all aspects of sustainability, all aspects of inclusion covered. And having learned that, really often we do have a quite superficial understanding of these concepts. So now with this report, we've been able to, integrate a deeper understanding of the competence of these competencies in our framework. So with a good information base, we're jumping on to the main output, I would say, in a sense, at least the backbone of the project, our competence framework. In real life, the competence framework would be 5 Excel sheets with dense information, not really apt for presenting on a stage. I did take note of Tom Campbell's presentation the other day. Of course, I should have included that here, but I've tried to instead just present to you the principle. So the competence framework basically describes trail building competencies across 4 levels, EQF level 3, EQF level 4, 5, and up to 6. So EQF refers to the European Qualification Framework. It's a common system used across Europe to describe competence building. So it's sort of it's a common language. It has 8 levels from 1 to 8, and as you can see here, we're in between. Level 3 is our entry level. Level 4 is our sort of practitioner level. Level 5 we can call the managerial level, and level 6 would be more the advanced specialist level. Here is one example of a competence requirement. So as you can see, we have 3 main themes that we work with in our framework, and this is similar in our educational material. So we have reached a consensus that whatever we do in terms of education or certification, these 3 pillars, they are the basis. So mountain biking in society, design and management, and construction and maintenance. So when we educate, we need to educate within these themes. When we certify within these themes. These themes, again, are broken into specific competence requirements. So within construction and maintenance, we have a long list of things that you, as a competent trail builder, trail building manager, need to be able to master. Here's one example. So this is one of a total of 16 for each level. Here's the title. So this is Constructing Mountain Bike Trail Features. I'm not sure if you can see it from where you sit. So here's a description of that area. Master the construction of trail features that optimize rider experience and safety, adapting techniques to diverse site-specific conditions and project goals. And here we have our level 3, 4, 5, and 6 competence requirements. So I'm just going to highlight sort of the principle here. So at the basic entry level, it's sort of recognizing and assisting. At level 4, we are able to demonstrate, we participate. Here we analyze, we facilitate, and here we lead, oversee, and we sort of provide advanced expert guidance. So this is sort of a typical evolution of all of these competence areas that we apply throughout the whole framework. So we've described competencies for these 3 themes throughout all of these 4 levels. But really, as I said in the beginning, level 4 and 5, that's really where our main emphasis is. This is where we're going to provide certification. So at the practitioner level, trail technician, and at the trail building manager level. We have a bunch of competence requirements described. However, we also have good insight from a sector survey. So really, we want to tailor the job profiles. We want to include the right competence requirements, and we want to make very specific tailored profile to what we have found in the surveys. So currently we have the EQF level 4 trail technician profile. which spans a selection of competence requirements. And similar, we have level 5 doing the same thing. But really, we can think of the competence framework as a menu. So this is just the start. But building off the competence framework, we can develop new profiles. We can develop really specific profiles. We can develop profiles for hiking trails, for working in protected areas. So please think of this as a starting point. We also identified, I don't know if you can call it sort of a shortcoming in our level 4 profile. We are emphasizing mainly manual build techniques, so working with manual tools. But we know that in many countries, mechanized trail building is really, really important. And in order to cater for these specialized competencies, we came up with the concept of specializations. So here we have our basic level 4 competence profile, and we're then able to add an additional EQF level 4 mechanized construction specialization. So currently, our Scottish partners are responsible for working on this profile. It's actually an add-on to what we promised in the education. So if we manage, we over-deliver.
The first pilot and launch phase will consist of the following 3 unique certifications. It will be the EQF4 Trail Technician Profile, along with the EQF4 Mechanized Construction Specialization, as well as the EQF5 Trail Building Manager Profile. Obviously, with the competence framework and certification profiles in place, there's still a major building block missing: the people actually undertaking the assessment. So in order to fill this role, we have recruited 13 national assessors who have all undergone a mixed training program consisting of 3 online sessions, as well as 1 on-site training event, which was recently hosted in Riederalp, Switzerland. The assessors are far from assessment robots. They are actively shaping and correcting the certification, providing input for assessment protocol, safety standard, and the way that we document the assessments. So in that way, they're proven to be really a key asset for the DIRTT project, and we can't thank them enough. We also think that the shared European training of the assessors has been a key component in contributing to a fairer and more consistent system across European borders.
Coming up from the training, every assessor was tasked with going back to their home markets, do a pilot assessment. So actually running through the assessment process and handing out maybe the first trail building certificates in Europe. Again, this is a pilot, so it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to provide us with a bunch of insights that we then, as a sort of a final step in the process, we integrate in the framework. We use it to fine-tune all the parameters and create a even better program when it's sort of ready to roll out eventually. The final piece of the puzzle. Spreadsheets are great. Like, my life is in spreadsheets, but we concluded that if you really want to operate a certification system that's clear, that sort of has a certain status, we need something that's more advanced. So for the project we have developed, we are developing actually, it will be launched in October, the DIRTT ICT system. It has 2 sides. It has the front end, which is for all the trail builders that want to sign up for a certification. Basically, you log into the page, you make your personal profile, and you're able to access the available certification levels. You sign up, and you get a nice description of what's required of you, and you are able to track your progress and which competencies you have required throughout the process. So, as well as when the certification is up for renewal. So for the trail builders, this is a management tool, and of course for us as a project or the stakeholders that will be responsible for running the certification. This is also an overview of all the certificates that we have issued, so that we can see and we can track the status, as well as allowing our assessors to interact with candidates. Again, launching in October. With all of the building blocks in place, we are actually coming really, really close to being able to put the certification into real life. I thought I was just gonna share with you our thoughts around how this is gonna be organized on a European level. We have also asked the trade builders about this in our survey, so there was a strong preference for European coordination and a national implementation. And basically, this is the solution that we see that we will likely run at the moment. So a project is a project. It has a starting date and it has an end date. Our end date is the end of November. And from that date, somebody needs to carry on. We do see that we need a DIRTT administration. It might be a foundation. That is not quite decided yet. In the meantime, IMBA Europe will manage the program. So the program is owned at a European level. The European level manages the certificates through the ICT system. They oversee the assessors and basically maintain and safeguards the brand. Okay. And then what we want to see at the national level is that national organizations, they do the actual coordination of the certifications, right? So everything that goes into the practical assessment happens locally, and we have national assessors as well, and of course a strong interaction. We realize that maybe at the moment few countries are ready. So there are a few countries that have this organization in place. Some have. In the meantime, we see that DIRTT will probably step in, so we will be able to coordinate those assessments until the national partners are ready and the organizations are established. I think at the moment, should have double checked this, but I think we're looking at a validity of the certificates of maybe 5 years, not quite decided yet.
3 and 5.
3 or 5 years, depending on how good you are. No. Not quite decided. So as you can see, there's still details to work on. We definitely have our hands full for the remaining weeks of the project. So we are coming close to the end of the project. It's wrapping up in November 2025, so just over 2 months really. And the actual launch of the certification, we really want to see happen through 2026. I don't want to be more specific. It could be earlier, it could be later, but we definitely want to have the certification scheme out there. So we're looking forward to this, and it's sort of been, when you come towards the end of these projects, we start within the project group with discussions are starting. So which new development do we need? Like, do we need a DIRTT 2.0? And basically that discussion started really, really late this time, but it did start, and we did make an application, and I'm really happy today to soft launch that we actually received sort of funding for a DIRTT 3.0 project phase. So that is that is kicking off actually in December. And it will be a new project period for 3 years. So what are we up to this time? Space rockets. Space rockets. AI trails. No. Actually, we are turning our focus slightly back to where we started, back to the roots, you can say. We do see that there's still a lot needed within education. I showed you the pilot program that we launched 22-23. Since then, we haven't been able to repeat the success. So we want to make sure that there's more education. We have 4 building blocks in the project. We do want to continue working on sustainability. We do think that there is still work to be done. From our survey, we saw that about 2/3 of all trade builders, they think that trade building can actually go beyond and be regenerative. So help restore nature, and that's definitely something we want to explore more. So more insights, more research. We want to expand our profile selection in the menu. We want to add EQF level 3, so an entry-level trail builder profile. We see that's really important. We know that just about half of the sector, they rely on volunteers. So like volunteers is probably one of the most important trail builder profiles throughout Europe. We want to include that. And we also want to make sure that everybody has access to some level of training. So we really want to up our game when it comes to digital learning material. We will expand our knowledge hub, make a digital learning hub. We want to run open courses that everybody can access, no matter where they live in Europe. So at a more foundational level, of course. And then for the professional side, for the more advanced skills, we want to try and create a network of schools, take the experience we had from the pilot, and see if we come together as a group, that we are able to provide relevant education that's accessible for more people, that comes at a lower cost, because schools, they will split the cost, they will deliver each their module. So making trail building education more available. We also, for this project phase, expanding the network. So we have 3 partners from the 2.0 project running as full partners for this project phase. And then we have Austria joining with Landesberufsschule Murau. We have Tracks and Trails from the Netherlands with specialty within biodiversity. And we have Bike Solutions from France. We do have representatives from Bike Solutions here, Kathy. Yeah, welcome to the club, guys. So with this project, we are currently 13 partners, and we span 8 countries. So DIRTT is growing. Yeah, I think that was actually it. I just wanna, if you don't already follow DIRTT on Instagram, LinkedIn, or wherever, please look up DIRTT.eu. We have a webpage under the same domain. Our knowledge hub is there. All our resources will be there, and this platform will also be developed with the new digital hub. And yeah, that's it for me, I think. Ta!